Word Machine with your host, Jimmy Hall.
Saying that night.
Till I find you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome singer-songwriter Greg Paquette to the program.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Where are you calling from today?
Well, I'm in where I currently live in North Carolina.
Oh, cool. Whereabouts?
I'm down near Wilmington, on the North-South Carolina border. I'm down in a little place called Cape Fear, which is sort of like where where North Carolina meets South Carolina. It's kind of subtropical. It's generally really pretty nice weather, generally.
Nice. So we're almost neighbors then.
Where are you?
I'm in North Myrtle Beach.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally cool.
Yeah.
We head down there every once in a while. I like to go down there with my wife just to get, because, you can just, get a nice hotel room in the beach and then just go out and go to dinner and not have to worry about driving anywhere.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of nice places down here. There's also a lot of nice places to perform as well.
Yeah. I haven't, since the COVID thing, I had a big schedule. A couple of years ago before COVID hit, I was living half-time out in Northern California, and on a mountain. And, I had booked a handful of really great gigs, and then COVID hit and I just canceled everything. And I haven't really been thinking too much about playing live since. Mm-hmm. Although I did just set up a live performance studio this weekend here at the house. So I'm getting back to that. I think by next summer I'll be back out on the road probably, or, going doing some gigs.
Yeah, you should try maybe heading up towards this way. I mean, there's a lot of cool places to play at.
Yeah, there's a ton. And I have kind of like a mixed bag of music. I kind of have all these different personalities, in music. And one of them is I love to play country blues and bluegrass as much as I like to do rock music, and sometimes even more maybe. And I could sit down and do, a couple of sets of music by myself, anytime. And that fits in really well down there. That format is good.
Oh, absolutely. What's your musical background? How long have you been playing music, playing instruments and singing? When did it start?
I saw the Beatles on TV when I was 5 years old, and my grandmother was staying with us at the time. And, I just got this really strong visual, overwhelming feeling. I needed to get a closer look at George Harrison's Gretsch guitar. And I just loved it. And I was little, and I remember everyone saying, "Get away from the TV," because I had to get a closer look at that guitar. So for Christmas that year, my parents got me a guitar, and my mom and dad got me the guitar. My grandmother paid for my guitar lessons for like years. And nice. I took guitar lessons from the age of 6 to today.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah. It's, when I was 11, we switched to this new teacher who was really good, because I'd been taught really kind of, the music reading and the note stuff. And he was this young guy. He was at Berkeley at the time, and he was a neighbor, and, everyone was afraid of him because he was just so cool. And he says to me, I was like 11 years old, and he says, Greg, no offense. He goes, you're kind of an awkward little kid. He goes, and you're very likely going to be spending a lot of time in your room by yourself. And maybe you shouldn't be thinking about playing rock music, because it involves a lot of other people. And that's really the worst part of playing music, is having to be involved with other people. He goes, if you can learn country blues and bluegrass, mm-hmm. He said, you can pick up rock and roll at any time. And he goes, and you don't have to rely on people being there. You can sit in your room and just do it. And that, that was like I was 11, and that was it. And then, that was pretty good. Then, I got into high school, mm-hmm. and I was a guitar player, and everybody wanted to be a guitar player in a band. But my friend Donnie was in a really, really cool band called the Street Rockers. Mm-hmm. He's great. He's still one of my best friends and a phenomenal drummer. And he says, "Greg, we need a bass player really bad. And my Uncle Butchie has a bass that he doesn't use. It just needs to be fixed." And he said, "So, why don't you join the band?" And I said, "Well, let me think about it." And I had been playing country blues and bluegrass for so long, which is where you use your thumb to play bass parts. Mm-hmm. I was like, whoa, this is great. And, I sort of became the bass player in my mid-teens. And then, so I'm pretty much a multi-instrumentalist at this point. I like all kinds of stuff. I can play keyboards. I had to pass 2 years of keyboards in college for my, because I was a music student. Mm-hmm. But I have not really I very sparingly use keyboards. I just really love guitar albums. I love guitar albums.
That's very cool. I believe every artist or band is influenced by someone. Who are some of yours?
Well, you got your obvious ones like the Beatles. I mean, that's like that they influenced a generation. When you talk about the total package bands, well, my first real true guitar hero was Doc Watson, John Fahey. I mean, the guys I really thought of as guitar heroes, but Pete Townsend and the Who. If I had to pick, Todd Rundgren. Yeah, I love Todd. He's amazing. He's one of my favorites, one of my great influences. But when you look at the breadth of work that Pete Townsend wrote and with the Who produced, and you look at John Entwistle as the bass player, Keith Moon and Daltrey, they were really one of my biggest influences. Behind them, of course, you get the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, Todd Rundgren. But as a songwriter, I have a different, I love I love J.J. Cale. I love Carole King. I look at songwriting, as its own thing. I have my own guitar heroes and my own songwriting heroes. And, Pete Townsend shows up in both of those lists.
Very cool. How do you approach songwriting? What is your creative process like?
The thing is about songs is the really good ones write themselves. And what I have learned, and I've been doing this since I was a kid. I started writing songs as an early teenager, and that was a long time ago. And now I have a definite process that is, you capture, the first thing that you do is you don't miss your opportunities, because when songs come to you, they can often go very quickly and you forget what came to you. So now what I will generally do is a song pops into my head, I'll sketch it up as fast as I can and write down my ideas about it so I can go back and develop it later. And that way I keep kind of a large box of, large scrap box of material, so to speak. And then I will often wait until the song jumps back into my head, or an idea comes along that embellishes it. And then it just becomes a developing and writing process. It's, you keep all your ideas, and sometimes you only get a sketch of an idea. And you say, oh, that's great. Well, you throw it in the box, but then you're looking at a song and you say, oh, I need a bridge for the song. Oh my God, that would work perfectly. That's exactly what I wanted to say. So, you can piece stuff together later. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing now is not really miss your opportunities and ideas. Make your sketches, and you can go. You don't have to write a hit song when you sit down to write a song. You want to write what you feel at that time, and you can develop it later. You don't have to feel a sense of need to complete it. I'm also really big into news and images. Almost all my songs, I try to create visuals. So I want a person listening to a song to be able to imagine themselves as the star of the video for that song. Mm-hmm. They kind of engage themselves into the song. So that, to me, to create visuals, I really love drawing up, conjuring up images from nature, wind, ocean, deserts, whatever's appropriate at the time. So a lot of imagery. So those are sort of my songwriting guidelines.
Nice. This podcast is going to feature two of your songs, Setting Sun and Pick Yourself Up. What's the story behind those songs?
Oh, those are both cool. Thank you. Yeah. Setting Sun was off of my first album, Single Stone, 2018. I was out in the Wilson Creek Wilderness camping with my two sons some years back. And, it was Sunday. We had to drive all the way across the state. We stopped at some, greasy little burger joint in the western North Carolina mountains. They had just a great view, and they served burger-type food. And then, there was a bar there. And we were sitting down at the end of the bar, and I was looking out over this incredible view, looking west over the mountains. And, I was sitting there talking to the boys, and we were talking about, we saw some snakes and rattlesnakes and stuff, and, fishing and all that. But I could hear these two guys. It was a Sunday, lunchtime. And these two guys were having this utterly alcohol and drug infused conversation about what they had done the weekend. And one guy was and he was just telling his buddy, and they're both sitting there getting smashed at noontime on a Sunday. And he's telling his buddy all these crazy stuff that happened Friday night and how he's been spending the whole week trying to find his girlfriend because his girlfriend thinks that he is the father of this other woman's child. Wow. And this is happening. I'm listening to this. I'm going, oh my God. I'm thinking this is going on all over America right now. Drug infused conversations. And the guy's like, man, I ain't never seen her. She, and I'll never forget. He goes, man, I got to tell you, I wouldn't mind a son, but I don't want a wife. And that one line just stuck with me. And the whole notion of this drug infused, alcohol-driven chaos that happens across our country all the time, That song was written by the time I got home. I had a 6-hour drive back, and the boys were, watching movies and playing games. And I was just sitting there. I just wrote the song, and when I got home, I just sat down and that came. So that was Setting Sun.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of interesting. What was the other one you mentioned?
Pick Yourself Up.
Pick Yourself Up is kind of, I was really irritated. I really am not a fan of news media that much.
I
watch
see why.
extremely. Yeah, I in very, very specific ways I allow myself to get news, because I really don't like getting sucked into the whole emotional thing. I'm more of a Walter Cronkite guy, but I was looking at like this divisiveness that we have now, and how overwhelming it is for people, and this feeling that you need to identify with one side or the other, and it can be very discouraging, especially for a guy like me that really doesn't identify on that many levels with that many people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to write something. I wanted a rocker. I wanted a kicker, that's going to get people off their ass and feel upbeat. And that's what that came about. I was just pick yourself up off the ground. There's beauty all around. It's just, we often forget that the best and most important thing we can do is reset our own, switch, get outside where, it might be the beach. It could be the mountains. I got a beautiful spot in my yard with a creek near it and stuff. You got to get out and pull yourself out of this crap, and not let yourself get sucked in, and really enjoy life for what it is and for the stuff that's around you. So that, that's kind of the background of that one.
Yeah. Great advice. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. There's a lot of negativity on the tube, and the best thing to get away from that is to listen to some good music.
Yeah, I do that all the time now. I never watch primetime television. End of story. I simply can't. And when if I ever find myself in a need to turn on the television during primetime, which is not very often, I'm generally offended by what I'm offered, to watch. It's like, really? Is this the best we can do?
Yep.
And it's offensive to me. So yeah, I actually watch like a lot of old westerns and stuff. I do it like early in the morning or late at night, and mainly because I know that the good guys are always going to win in the end. The bad guys are always going to die most egregiously, and there's a sense of justice and purity about it. And the other thing is, in those days, in the 40s, 50s, and early into the 60s, those stories relied 100% on a well-written plot. And as a writer, I actually look to a lot of those programs and old westerns, for inspiration, because they're so well written, and you don't have that kind of writing anymore.
No. Speaking of writing, you've written a musical, The World in Blue. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. My band in Boston in the 80s, it was I loved it. It was Option One, great guys. We're all still very close. But we, not an unusual story. We had kind of a near miss with record companies, and we thought it was going to be all done. And sure enough, we were dropped like a bad habit. And at the time, I was just like overwhelmed with artistic input, and I said to the band, I said, look, I said, I don't have it in me to go 6 years to get another opportunity like this. I said, I want to write a musical. I want to write a musical. I think, I've got the whole thing cooked up in my head. I had been reading, like, I'm a major history fan. I study history. I've always studied history. And I extracted out of The Story of Civilization by, Will and Aaron Duran, or Robert Graves, or the campaigns of Alexander, just these extraordinary events that actually really occurred in history. It blew me away that these things really happened. I mean, you read the campaigns of Alexander, it reads like a dime store novel. It's like, holy shit, these guys were crazy. And so I wrote this, and I said to the guys, I said, I think we should do a musical. And they were all looking at me like my potato was baking for too long, and they kind of didn't want to. And I said, okay. And a couple guys went to New York, and I stayed in Boston, and I sold all my big gig gear, and I bought a recording studio. And that was the most revolutionary part of my life, because recording is what I love the most, really. So I just started to write and record this musical, and I did it, and it was, 17 songs, the whole stage play, all that stuff. And I really liked it. I liked it. I was happy with it, but, I did it all by myself, which was a massive undertaking. And when I was done with it, I was kind of sick of it. I said, I'll put this away for a while, because, I'm kind of tired of hearing this, because, you got to record every track of every song. So I put it away, and it stayed away for a long time. And I stuck it into a box with, a copy of the tape and a floppy disk, oddly enough. And about 10 years ago, my older son, his cousin was here, and they needed something to do. And I said, look, if you go out and clean the garage, there's all these boxes with paper in there. Just throw that stuff out, separate the recycling and all that, and, I'll give you some money. And I said, oh, great, so they need something to do. It's summertime. And about 15 minutes later, my son comes in, and he's got a 3-ring binder, and it was The World in Blue, that not only had I mostly forgotten about, but I thought I had lost it 2 moves earlier.
Wow.
I thought it was gone. And I just said, oh, it's gone. That's the way it goes. That kind of sucks. And I put it away. I looked at it, and I said, well, my son, we have recording. We've always had recording studios in the house. And my son, he's no stranger to them. So I said, look, I'm working right now. I'm really busy. Can you do me a favor? Can you go upstairs, take this tape, put it into the tape deck, and you just get a recording of every song. Just get them, just capture them once. We can clean them up later. I said, because this tape could rot out any time. And he goes, oh, yeah, I'll do that. So, and I said, and I'll pay you for that too. So now he's upstairs playing in the studio, getting paid, like in life. And he'd come down every song, and he'd say, Dad, did you write this? I'd say, yeah. And I'd say, wow. And he'd go back upstairs, come back down. Dad, did you write this? So, the thing is, it occurred to me, I realized that it was pretty good. And I showed it to a friend of mine, John Laurenti, who's, he's like, been in radio and radio programming and stuff for as long as I've known him, like a long time. Mm-hmm. And he listened to it, and he says, Greg, this is just like, he said, this is like, Game of Thrones, a Game of Thrones musical. And oddly enough, I said, well, which Game of Thrones? And he's like, oh, dude, you don't watch TV. And I'm like, no. So, between him and some other people, they said, you got to just dust it off a little bit. And so what I've done is I actually took 4 of the songs from the musical. I put them on the first album. I took 4 of the songs from the musical, put them on the second album. And the album I'm recording now has 1 song from the musical. But I have just finished, I have like one more little recording to get complete. And then I'm going to basically, shop that and see if we can get it produced. So yeah, it's quite big, and it's it's a life's work. I mean, it was really what I spent a long time doing. So I have a long and not very glorious history of accomplishing huge things and walking away. Mm-hmm. I've recorded a few albums I just walked away from, and I decided this time I'm not going to walk away from that. So I just polished it up a bit, and I'm doing the demos, and that's just about ready to go. So
you have 2 full-length studio albums to date? Yeah,
I have Single Stone from 2018, mm-hmm. and I have Retroactive from 2020. And that was, Single Stone was good. I liked it. I wanted to produce at the time I was listening to classic rock guitar albums. I was listening to digitally remastered mm-hmm. classic rock albums from the 70s, and I was wicked into it. And I was saying, man, nobody does albums like this anymore. Why don't people do albums like this? And that's sort of where the first album came from. The second album, Retroactive, I was going to produce that on the West Coast with a lot of my friends out there, but COVID came. So both of my sons moved back from California, and we came back. I was back. And my older son is a producer, super talented. And I said, hey, you feel like producing this album for me? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So my oldest son, Chris, produced Retroactive, and that was just really great. Really, great, because it was sort of like, he learned an awful lot from me growing up in my studio. And he kind of went over to the hip-hop area, and he's a hip-hop producer mainly. Mm-hmm. But there's some incredible production things that he brought with him that I was completely unaware of, or things I had never done, because I still think very much like I'm recording on a 24-track, tape deck. But he had a very vastly different approach. And, I ended up just really kind of shutting up for most of the time and just saying, sure, let's do that. That sounds great. So that was a really fun experience. That was great.
Now, besides what you had mentioned before with the musical, what else are you currently working on?
Well, I'm working on my next album, and that is, I have a working title for it, but I'm not going to share it yet. But before COVID came, I mean, I had been traveling around, and I've lived in a lot of places around the country, and I kind of get that rambling bone, and I love trains. I've loved trains since I was a little kid, and the last time I went out on the road, by myself, traveling alone. I do that a lot. I'll travel alone a lot. I just like it. I really wrote most of the album just like sitting on trains and stuff and looking out the windows, watching the harbors go by and stuff. And I just wrote, there's kind of a good thing that happens when you're an indie artist. And you come to the realization that in 25 years, statistically, the chances are that you're going to be the only one listening to it. Statistically, we hope for the best, but it's got to be good enough. So you kind of this album I'm sort of writing to myself. I mean, the first album was a bunch of songs I felt like they just needed to be recorded, and I wanted to record them a certain way. Retroactive was very much a reflection of the times and what was happening at the time. But the third album is stuff that I want to write and moreover stuff I want to play. I think I'll be more aggressive on it musically. Like before I even decided to make the new album, I was sitting outside with both of my sons and they were saying, Dad, you play some real powerful funk bass, you do some real killer slap stuff, how come you don't do that in the album, in your albums? I said, well, when I go in the studio, I record what needs to be recorded. And, I'm not trying to get on the cover of Bass Player magazine. And they're like, oh man, you should do that stuff. So I said, well, so this time I'm going to let loose a little bit. We're letting loose. We're going to, I'm going to play some, I just want to play the hell out of this album. I just want to really play the hell out of it. I just want to, hit that guitar really hard. That's where I'm at with this album. And it's really, the album is very much about, getting out, go out and be part of humanity. Just go and do it. It's an amazing place out there. And, we're getting pounded into our homes. We're getting pounded back into seclusion, and it's like the worst thing for us. And I think that's sort of the main theme about the album, the stories about people that we ignore. And so I'm kind of happy about this album since I have no real expectations for it beyond what I want to do,
What are your plans for the coming year, 2022?
Well, I want to get the musical into the hands of the people that can potentially get it produced. That's a big thing. I mean, it's got to be done. And I will continue to promote the first two albums because you kind of always have to do that. But I really, as an artist, some guys paint, some guys write songs. I make albums. I make entire albums. My art is not just a single song. It's an entire album. And I have so I'm going to be writing the new album, and I always have multiple things cooking. I think that, I just set up an area here at the house where, I have an incredible live playing situation because, a recording studio is vastly different than a performance studio. So I have the recording studio, and now I just set up the performance studio, and I'm thinking about I'm probably going to put together a band and, take the show, do some gigs and stuff next year. I think it'll be timed well. I think we'll have a lot of this crap behind us, and people will be going out. And so I think I'm probably putting together a band.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be nice. I have, Joey Hovey's my drummer. He's been with me since the first album. And he's great. He's a great drummer. He's got great instincts. And, so it's now a matter of finding, I need another guitar player and a bass player. And you can do, anything on my albums can be done, with, guitar, two guitars, a bass and drums. I just kind of write sparse like that. So that's what's up. I'm just going to see if I can get a band together for some live performances. I might do some solo gigs too. I have a couple of sets together. I have a few sets of music together. I could just go and do a solo gig anytime. Just haven't really picked up the phone to book anything. So I'll probably do some of those too.
Nice. Do you have a website you'd like to promote?
Yeah, well, you can go to Greg Paquette, GregPaquette.com. That's got my bio, and I'll be updating that website. That's got stuff in it, and all kinds of information, and I'll be updating that very soon. And then I'll have, when I have live events, I'll have a little tag for that, and we'll do that too there. So yeah, that's it. Website.
Is the music available on there as well?
Currently, no. And that's, I'm at odds with the way modern music is distributed, and my son's fiance was over yesterday, and she said, I really want you to hear my brother play the guitar. And I said, great. And she goes to this streaming service where he goes that will remain nameless, and we had to sit through 2 commercials, to wait for his music, and he'll never see dime one for that.
Nope.
He'll never see dime one. So until I really come up with a better way, I'm not going to be. I hope to be sharing my music on that site pretty soon.
I was referring to product, like physical copies of CDs.
Oh yeah, you know what? I will put those up for sale very soon because I do have those. And there's another thing I want to put up there. My album cover for the second album was done by one of my dear old friends, DC Langer. When I was a freshman in college in Boston, first person I ever had a musical jam with was DC Langer, and she's a remarkable graphic artist. So this is like, we go way, 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 way back. And she did an unbelievable job on the album cover. She just did an amazing job. So what I might do is also, I've had 3 or 4 people say, wow, could I get a print of that? So I might put up, I was thinking, I got some cool stuff. I might sell some prints and some
poster,
shirts
maybe,
and stuff up there too. Yeah, well, exactly. The poster would be sick because it's the right size, and she did a remarkable job. She just did, and she's an incredible artist. So she's on board for the next album. The next album has a very cool concept, and we're already kind of cultivating the design.
Nice.
So so I will have CDs and other paraphernalia type stuff up there pretty soon.
Very cool. Is there anything you'd like to mention that we didn't talk about today?
No, but I'd like to. I could encapsulate my feelings in a nice little summary like this. In the end, we all look back, and some of us are lucky enough to be able to remember the good times, and other people will be unfortunate and have to remember bad times. But the fact is that the only thing that really matters is happiness. And, our whole objective in life should be to avoid people that are making us unhappy and to do things that make us feel complete, and that, do everything with the power and the energy of love and the drive of love. That's the one thing that I think is really important. I wish people would just stop watching most forms of broadcast media, because they're all just trying to get your clicks. They're all just trying to, and it's entertaining for them. They're trying to get you revved up and want to take to the streets, when in fact, the most important thing we can do is sort of take to the beach or take to the woods.
Right.
And just find yourself. And so I guess that's sort of where I am right now.
No, that's a good message. Well, Greg, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and I wish you the best of luck with the new music this coming year. And when it comes out, I'd love to have you back on. Let's stay in touch, and especially if you decide to come up this way and perform.
Well, I have my eye on it. So, and you guys are right in an area where I would do it. So I appreciate it very much. And as things develop, I'll keep in touch and give you advance copies and everything.
All right, brother. Well, you take care and have a great day. All right.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Everything that's going on today. Whenever I pick up the news, I can't help but get the blues. Politicians telling lies, pigs will fly and the sun won't rise. Soaked in crocodile tears, using lies to sell their fears. And when I look and see my friends and family lose the path that they must follow, smoke and drink away their sorrow. I just wanna say that it doesn't have to be that way. You can rise above the blues. Who you are is yours to choose. Pick yourself up off the ground. There's beauty all around. Open up your eyes, you'll see it. Open up your soul and free it. Don't get caught up in the race. You might as well paint your face. Don't worry about the world's illusions. They just fabricate confusion. It's getting kinda old. I think of all the things that we've been told. All the blind hypocrisy when they talk about democracy. There's a part of me that grieves, 'cause I still want to believe. But people just believe the lies and don't see what's before their eyes. Pick yourself up off the ground. There's beauty all around. Open up your eyes, you'll see it. Open up your soul and free it. Don't get caught up in the race. You might as well paint your face. Don't worry about the world's illusions. They just fabricate confusion. The day I can finally say people learn to speak their minds without using other people's lines. Maybe then we'll see changing policy. The problem with the world today is you can't believe a word they say.